All right, good evening, everybody. It's 6:02, and this is the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. If we could all stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if we can do a just roll call, go around the table, starting with Mrs. Bites.
Carol Bites.
Daniel O'Neill.
Connor Kurtz.
David Rathbun.
Then from the administration, if we could start with Mr. Hurley.
Hurley.
Mary Beth
Okay, great. We have two members of the public. Now, moving on to item 2, procedures for public participation. If anybody has anything they want to say, not too many people are here, feel free to just come up to the podium and we can have a conversation. Next up is something that we talked about last month, but it was suggested by Mr. Rathgib, so I just wanted to bring it up one more time, this idea of incorporating, the question was Earth Day versus Capitalism Day, proposed by the American Enterprise Institute, and we spoke about it a little bit last meeting, but...
I apologize, I didn't listen to the tape.
Oh,
I don't know exactly what you guys
I just said we'd bring it up again. It was kind of an overview. We did have a nice conversation about Arbor Day.
I mean,
the whole thing.
If anybody knows, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that's kind of middle of the road. But, and Earth Day, I think, started out as a great idea, but I think it's just morphed into this, it's starting to get a little carried away in certain aspects. So I think as educators, I think you guys try to present both sides of the issue. And certainly when it comes to, if we did have abundant energy in this country, we wouldn't have all our sewage plants and drinking water. And you see that in Africa, they don't have as much energy as we do as far as producing it. So they have a lot of issues with clean water. And you've seen greenhouse gas emissions reduce considerably over the past several years. That's because we switched. We're now producing more electricity with natural gas than our coal. And the reason we're doing that is because natural gas now is so cheap. It's economic. It's not them forcing the companies to switch over. There is some pressure, but it's more reality of economics. So, I'm just trying to make sure that both sides. You're talking to a guy that back in 1990s bought one of those CFC bulbs for like $40, and it lit like a 2 square foot area, So I was always big in trying.
And even those green innovations are courtesy of the free market. So
that's the only reason
I think the principals weighed in that we really were kind of overdoing it on Earth Day. Was that the discussion we had then?
Yeah. I did receive an email from Mr. Miller, however, and after our conversation last meeting, he responded by saying, let's find it here, that as an update, he signed AEC up for an Arbor Day membership, and they received 10 free dogwood trees for the Nature Center. So there we go. Yeah. Perhaps the other schools might be able to get some free trees. I'll respond to Mr. Miller and ask.
They send you out like trees about yay big?
Yeah.
They grow.
They do grow.
They do. I have evidence in my backyard.
Yes.
So big.
All right. Next up is an item from Mrs. Bites, superintendent's letters regarding high-stakes testing. And Mr. Hurley is taking the lead on that, if you can jump in.
Sure, I can. This is just a draft. Obviously, there's been concerns. This one, thank you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley.
That's just a draft to the governor, just about our position on testing. The fact that it's being overdone is taking away. Our biggest issue is it takes away valuable instructional time. It puts undue stress on students. That's not necessary. We're all in favor of accountability. We have no problems with that. But our testing is overdone, and it's taking away instructional time. Puts unnecessary stress on students and staff. And that's the essence of that. That's a draft version. It's not a letterhead yet, obviously, but it'll give you an idea of what we're looking at.
And Mrs. Bites, your suggestion was to circulate that among administrators, teachers, board members,
Yeah,
as many.
yeah, anybody in the
Who wants to,
administration
yeah.
and board community that would want to, and teachers,
Yeah.
that would care to sign on to it. What are you thinking? Would that be appropriate, just to ask anybody, any of the employees here, teachers, administrators, board members?
Yeah, that particular letter was from administration, but what we can do is we can certainly have other people sign off on it if they'd like to sign.
That's
off.
what I was just thinking,
Yeah.
like a sign off.
Yeah.
We can all sign on, like someone can represent administration, someone can represent.
Okay.
Well, I was thinking the more signatures, the more
The more
powerful
signatures,
it
the
may
better, you know, the more
Yeah.
powerful.
be. If people, only
Now,
if they're
can we bring
interested.
this back to committee next month and see if we want to schmooze the language at all?
Sure.
Is that okay with you? Because there's no hurry.
No.
I do have another letter that I wanted to
Please do. Anything
compare to.
anything
Okay.
you see out there.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
All right.
Perfect, thank you.
Anything else on superintendent's letter? All right, next up, we're going to talk about, I have it down as substitute program, but that's kind of an all-encompassing conversation about substitutes and
Yeah, right now we're looking at, we prepared an MOU that went out to the teachers union in regards to doing the period something, and then the other piece in terms of substitutes to be aware of, we're currently looking at a substitute teacher service. It's the same group that we're hiring. We have a contract on tonight for substitute nurses. It's the same group, same organization, and we're looking at bringing them in. And the goal is to increase our fill rate. Their pool is a lot larger than what ours is to draw from. So it's part of a multi-layered attempt to try to address some of our issues in regards to filling classrooms.
would you
Did we
mind?
look at a service before though, or did we have? I remember this conversation about looking for a service.
We've
Yeah.
actually, we've looked at four different companies, like Source for Teachers. We looked at Delta T, which is one of them. We looked at, and I don't have one right here, we looked at Delta T, Source for Teachers. Kelly is the other group that we looked at. And so we looked at multiple services. This is the group that was being most aggressive in terms of looking for our business. I think they were one of the local districts they just tagged up with over in Montgomery County, so I think they're looking at expanding in this direction. And so for the teaching piece of that, we're trying to get some performance things. We're working on the contractual language. We want some performance goals in there for them, so if they don't hit what we do, like for example, if we want a 90% fill rate, 95% fill rate, where would that be? Tonight at the regular school board meeting, we have a contract with them for our substitute nursing service. We have a substitute nursing service currently. We believe these guys will do what they have. Will be more attentive to us in regards to this and do a better job with the current nursing service that we have. So that's why you'll see the contract that's going to be in there tonight. Okay, and then the other one will
So-
be forthcoming for.
Yeah, so tonight we're just doing nurses.
Just doing the nurses, yeah.
But there could be something coming.
Yeah, there's something, I
Okay.
mean, literally, our lawyers have contractual language right now, and
Okay.
they're working on it with the organization in terms of, we're trying to negotiate that.
And that could be in place for next year?
Yeah, the plan for that is next year. The nursing thing, we want to keep moving along this because we're not thrilled with our current sub-nursing service, to be very honest.
Great.
Mrs. Bites and I had a conversation with a substitute teacher a few days ago, and this substitute teacher commented how when she's looking to determine where to sub, well, there's the issue of the daily rate, which is still lower. We've had conversations about this in the past, lower than some neighboring school districts. But also there's the issue of benefits being taken out. I guess it was retirement for Peasers, that deduction. Do you remember by any chance if it was?
Yeah, Peasers
What was
does,
that?
Peasers has to be taken out as well as Social Security
But
has to be
other
taken out.
districts don't, she said.
Or
They
maybe,
have to be taken out. She's inaccurate. It has to be, according to our business people, it has to be taken out, and it gets refunded by, if they don't hit a certain number of days, whatever that Peacer's allowance is, it gets refunded back to them, is my understanding of that
Oh.
secret. But
How
I
about
would
that?
prefer, in a particular situation, I'd like to have our assistant business manager or business manager talk to that specific point, because they deal with that on a regular
Yeah,
basis.
sure.
I'm just talking informally with
Yeah.
people.
Sure.
and-
well, if the plan is to move forward with this new service, then there's no need, I guess, to talk about those specifics. But if in the event we don't move that direction, I would like to have that
And if other
conversation.
districts don't do that, they may not be doing it correctly also. That may also be.
That's interesting.
So,
The other issue.
Wait, well, could it be, sorry to interrupt, could it be that maybe they front the cost, if you will, and then the Peasers reimbursement,
It
instead of
would be
going
my
back to the
question, and
employee,
I'm
goes
just
back to the
speculating right now,
district?
Carol, but my question, one of the questions I would ask, are they using an outside service because one of the advantages of using an outside service, like if you use SDS or Delta T or any of these groups, Kelly, is you don't have to pay your piecers and you don't have to do that. So
That's right.
that expense is there. So there's a possibility that
Yeah, we'll
could be
look
correct.
back into that.
And again, I'd like Lauren to speak to that, or Michael to speak to that part of it.
The other point that came up from this sub was that when she gets assigned to our district and she has to take the aid role, she actually makes a lesser rate, like a $65 rate.
Yeah,
And
versus,
I understand,
yeah.
and she also extended that to say that when our aides, when they're asked to sub that day, they only make their aid rate. So it's they're disincentivized, and this might be a question for the business office more than anything. They're disincentivized to sub for us when we're short because they're making less money than they would as the sub.
It's a possibility, $95 a day, and when you take out your piecers and you take out your Social Security, that's going to add up real quick. I mean, you start doing the math.
Yeah.
So she may be right on that.
So can we give the business office a
Yeah,
look
we
at
can
that?
give the business office a
It's
look.
actually a lower rate depending on what
Yeah.
you're assigned to.
And we modified the call out procedure yet? We're still,
Not yet, we're working on that.
What was that question, Mr. Rankin?
the ASOP, the call out procedure, when we had discussed modifying that.
Are you talking about for professional staff or
Yeah,
for
we talked
substitutes?
about it administratively, I don't think we corrected that yet. We'll get it out there.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Rankin.
Anything else on substitutes? All right. Next up is Mrs. Kiesel, Science Curriculum Overview.
I have a hard copy of the executive summary for you. I also emailed an electronic copy. So, right now, I just remember to read.
Sir? Thank you.
So, as you know, we have been working on the elementary science curriculum, and we have a committee that has completed the work to where we are right now, and we're ready to begin implementation in September. I'll give you just a few minutes to read that.
Is everybody about ready?
Yep.
Okay.
So is that what you were looking for? Does that meet your needs as far as the general overview of the science curriculum? What we did was we looked at primarily two websites. The Next Generation for Standards, Science Standards, and also Pennsylvania's Standard Aligned Systems. And we looked at, used that as a framework for building our science curriculum. It's very different to what we're accustomed to as far as the teaching and learning piece goes. It's a lot more hands-on, in-garden-based. One of the things that I think is really exciting are the resources that are on the Standard Aligned curriculum. What they did was created an online community and they have resources which are from anywhere in the world. So I printed one of these pages just to give you an idea of the amount of resources that are available. Most of them are free. They're digital, so that's where technology comes into play. And but the British Library is one of the resources on here. There are really great resources from all over the world in the Standard Lines website, and that's put out by the state of Pennsylvania.
And
In
those are-
collaboration with teachers and districts and
Resources or lesson plans to go along
both.
with it?
They're
Cool.
both.
So
They're
it's
all
a
on
big,
there.
big
It's
collaborative.
a great, yes.
Cool. And will our FOSS kids fit into the new curriculum that we
Yes,
just invested
yes.
in? Good.
And at the same time, the FOSS kits are aligned to the curriculum. So
Nice.
really, I should say we looked at 3 different sources when we were writing the curriculum. And then what we believe are best practice in curriculum writing, which includes essential questions, the concepts, skills you're going to use, the vocabulary that the kids will be learning, the assessments that are in line with the curriculum and instruction, and then the materials and resources.
Who was on the science committee?
We had 2 representatives from each grade level, K through 5.
Teacher?
Yes, 2 teachers. And we tried to get one from Birdsboro and then one from Amity as well. That way we didn't have.
How does that selection process work?
What we do is, I have the principal solicit, see if anyone's interested.
Yeah.
And then they let the principals know that they are interested. But often in the end, it is a selection of people who are interested.
And is the
They're-
process complete then? Am I to understand that you're done?
It's complete, but I think you need to understand that implementation plans are cyclical. So the first year you might visit other districts for ideas. The second year you might do a needs assessment and look at what you currently have. We began with, I believe it's the 3rd year of the plan, which is implementation. And so, I mean, not implementation, the actual curriculum writing. So we did that this past year. And then next year will be implementation. And while we're implementing the new curriculum, we'll have teachers and principals and everyone take notes and see what's working, what's
Right,
not
right, right.
working,
In the
what
process
other
of
resource, right.
Editing it,
Kind of
altering it.
tweaking it.
Well-
So we're monitoring it for a
Good.
few years. And then in year 5, I believe, is the evaluation year. So that's when we evaluate. So
Okay. Now that evaluation, I'm wondering, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about, you mentioned how there's a lot of changes this time to how we teach with this curriculum. We evaluate our students, we evaluate our teachers, we evaluate our administrators. But in terms of keeping up with advances in whether it's pedagogy or whether it's the subject material itself, how do we evaluate that? Is it a continuous thing? Or, I mean, seeing that the last time this curriculum was updated was in the mid-90s, and
Right.
it seemed that we need to do a better job at
and,
staying.
and that's
That's
a
the
national
new-
thing. That's not just
Yeah.
a Daniel
Okay. Mhm.
That's the last time standards were written for science, the mid-90s.
And is that how do we evaluate our curriculum by looking to the standards and seeing how our curriculum aligns to those standards? Is that how we determine the effectiveness and
That's where
the
we
material?
I thought we adopted a cycle here. But
We
we're gonna
did.
keep
Well,
the
yeah,
cycle.
but I'm
And
talking
that's where
more
we're
within,
always
yeah.
going now, right?
That's where we begin. I have to say that I believe that curriculums are living documents, nothing that should be kept in a file cabinet or on a computer. Everyone needs to have access to them, and that they're evolving as we learn.
Then, so after year 5, after the evaluation, then we'll go right back into writing
Yes.
if necessary, review, implementation. Well, I guess it's implemented.
Well, on that note of
The process.
curricula being accessible to a lot of different stakeholders, is there, when I visited the high school, Mr. McKnight showed us a software about, that allows, I don't know, yeah.
Can we get that online? Is that where we're going? Are you asking us?
Yes.
Could you bring us the formal proposal
Yeah.
for that?
Sure, certainly.
We-
We'd like
Thank
to-
you.
We'd
Yeah.
be interested in knowing what it costs and if it could be phased in,
And how it works.
how it
and
would work. Yeah, we'd love a presentation on that.
And even if there's a way to get this material out there and disperse it, if parents are interested in seeing what their
Parents.
students are learning that week, they can log onto the website, pull up, and see where we are.
And one of the features of the product that we were speaking of enables people people to have different levels of access
Right.
to the curriculum.
Right, that's
which
right.
is really nice.
That
But
would
you
be
don't want to
great.
put the same exact thing.
You can start
teacher's
editing.
daily lesson plans
Right.
out.
Yeah.
But you can start doing strikeouts and start preparing
Right,
for the next
right.
revision.
Well, one
I'd
of
love to
my
see
biggest
that.
frustrations with how curriculum is done in Daniel Boone, there's the filing cabinet upstairs that has curriculum going back until the 1990s.
It comes with a floppy disk.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's one of the problems. It's a
Can we run
It's a
floppies in the
static-
district right now?
it's a folder. It's a static folder that just sits in a filing cabinet, and that's not what curriculum should be, as I see it. I spoke with Mr. Hurley about this theory that I have, that if we don't continuously reference the curriculum and look back, the curriculum is set. Once it's agreed to by the board, you have your direction. But as time goes, I think you begin to veer a little bit. If you're not always referencing that curriculum, back to that curriculum, because you base, I'm guessing, your lesson plans on what you've taught previously, and as that time goes on, you're only looking back, but you're not looking at the roadmap itself. That's my theory, at least. But I hope that this software and this
Makes it
cycle
more
will help.
dynamic, having it on a cycle, right? And then maybe integrating it with the software.
Yeah.
I have one more question. Have any of the committee members expressed any concerns for deficiencies in the whole curriculum yet?
Concern. Sure.
Or is
I
it-
mean,
yeah.
there are
some-
always some concerns.
Okay, but it'll be flushed out. I just wanted to
Right.
know if that.
I think
yeah,
the
any
biggest
or-
constraint is usually time for collaboration,
Okay.
time for professional development. So time and resources are always
I'm going
a
to
challenge.
I'm going to throw this out to committee just because I don't want to act alone here. I'd like to sit down, if at all possible, with Mr. Hurley and Mrs. Kiesel to come up maybe with to one, learn how the process works of writing curriculum, but also I think it would be so helpful if whenever we have new curriculum come to us, we have a little sheet, maybe not a worksheet, but an evaluation members of the committee fill out where they highlight what
Yes.
they think is great about this curriculum, maybe
Yes.
where it needs some work,
Yes.
things to look for. So it's not just once and then it's done, but we
Right.
have something where we can look back.
Great idea.
So maybe we can sit down and talk about that at
Comments.
some point. Anybody on the committee who'd be interested in joining, just sometime maybe this month or next month, just maybe an hour or two in the afternoon on a weekday. But
Not to bring up a dirty word, but I assume that this style is kind of tailored to how I wouldn't say Keystone Way or
Like the state standard.
Common Core.
No, not that. The Common Core style, which I'm, by the way, I'm not against. I mean, I get the collaboration part and all that, and I assume that's how it was kind of modeled. So I guess my question is, are teachers not comfortable teaching that style?
There are Common Core
I don't-
standards for science, are there?
Well,
think-
when I say Common
PA.
Core, I think Common Core is
PA
more of a style of getting the kids to work together and collaborate and come up with solutions as a group, as opposed to more of an individual. Here's, put my answer on the paper. They're trying to teach the kids a different way to think. Is that correct? Saying that way?
I believe that it is more of a 21st century learning model.
Yeah. Okay.
And the national, the next generation science standards are more Common Core, so they're more a collaboration with all the states initially and the big science researchers and the science foundations, and then the Pennsylvania Standards Aligned System is more of the state modified version, so it's kind of a integration of both of them.
So the-
Trying to take the best of both worlds.
Questions are teachers are comfortable with that new style of teaching?
I believe so. I mean, the only way they're going to get comfortable with it, I think, is to try it.
Well, I guess my question is, do they need is there any in-services that are going to be specifically set aside to make sure that?
It would be nice if we had it. I'm sure they will be looking at it in team meetings. I know some of the schools do PLCs, and those are the kinds of things I envision them discussing during their PLCs. So,
All right.
Just one more question. I don't suppose any of the committee members express any interest in infusing any intelligent design into the curriculum? Along with the evolution theory? Just another theory, I guess not. Okay, thank you.
We've got enough controversy.
Just wondering,
Going,
it's just another
yeah.
theory
No,
out
yeah.
there.
Mhm.
I guess not, but thank you.
I'll just pass this around just so you can get an idea of, like I said, the resources and materials, which a lot of them are free. So I can take a look at it. Click on the Standard and One System website.
All right. Any other questions on the elementary science curriculum? All right. Well, Mrs. Kiesel, if you could pivot, and it's not on the agenda explicitly, but can you talk about the news article that you shared with the board? If there's anything you have to share, unless it's just kind of an FYI.
Yeah, I didn't really prepare for it other than to copy it. I will let you know that I did visit Wilson School District, specifically in at an elementary school, Whitfield Elementary School, and they were showing a new program that they offer. So where they used to offer computer science lab, what they found was through their investment in technology, it changed the way that students were using technology, because they used to sit in front of a computer screen in a stationary model of a computer in a computer lab, and that's where they worked. So it didn't really allow for the kinds of learning that they wanted as far as 21st century learning goes. They were very interested in those 4 skills: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. And so instead of the kids going to computer lab once a cycle, they went to what they call discovery. So they did hire teachers. They did create positions to teach the discovery program. And it was interesting that each of the almost all the teachers were second grade teachers.
Okay.
That was their past experience. So they weren't really, I think they probably were very interested in technology as well. So their new schedule, they would have kids come to them once a cycle. I think they had a 6-day cycle. And then they were also part-time tech coaches in their schools. And they also handled looking at hardware and integrating technology with classrooms. It was very different than what we're accustomed to. If you went there, it was so different. It amazed me. Even the setup of the furniture. They had bouncy balls a lot of times for chairs, or chairs with springs. There was a lot of free choice and student-based project learning. So it's very hands-on. The students took a great deal of ownership in their learning, so a lot of times they had the choice of what they were going to learn.
Can you tell me what's going on in this picture?
Sure.
Yeah.
This
If you
is
remember.
after we actually sat and watched these classes, so we were able to watch the students working, and we could ask them questions and look and see how it was all set up. And then afterwards, we went. So that's what this picture is. I'm in there on the right-hand side. You can see me sitting in the front, but part of me anyhow. So when these kids came into the class, the teacher would have them all together on the carpet and explain, just give some general guidelines for the day and just touch base and get the kids started.
Yeah.
And then they would go off.
And then
to
they
the
went
different
off into
stations.
small groups, and they worked in small groups. Some of the kids were working on electric circuits. Some of the kids were working on, I'm trying to think all the different things. They were all connected to the 4 C's. So, and they also reference the new standards for science or for technology. So that was kind of the framework, but it was, the teacher role becomes more of a facilitator and coach rather than the traditional teacher who's often seen as the keeper of the information. it was very exciting to me. They did a lot of upcycling. I know Mr. Miller had mentioned upcycling before. And so they have a lot of stuff like toilet paper tubes and pizza boxes. And
All right.
yeah, I don't want to take any more of your time.
Yeah, well, if just generally, I know we do a lot of collaboration in terms of learning from other districts. If there are ever any opportunities, like I know this is probably geared more toward principals, but anything that maybe board members might be able to tag along, specifically members of this committee, to see how other districts do things, maybe just send out like a little email to us. I know I'd appreciate that just to learn more. But
Yeah, I can ask one of the teachers or principals.
or yeah, just
I know that this was filled very
Yeah.
quickly. There were 50 educators.
wow. Okay.
Open to 50 educators, and it was filled.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what types of opportunities are out there, and if using your judgment, if you think it's something that is worth
Is this something
us.
you want to bring to our district then? Or what is the,
Someday, I would love to.
Or maybe a Daniel Boone variant on it.
is it like something you buy then?
No. As a matter of fact, it's very cost effective as far as the resources they use. They have their PTOs, they call them instead of PTCs. They give them a list of what the resources they're seeking. The initial cost would be the positions. So
Oh,
is
there are
it-
additional teaching positions.
Through Discovery Learning then? Is it just a?
No, this is
component
their
of-
own, they make their own curriculum.
They, meaning Wilson.
Yes. And they're also
okay.
very interested in, they share a lot of what they do. So they share their curriculum.
Nice, yeah.
And I might have a PowerPoint I could send out to you to find out more about it.
And what is, it's just elementary, it's what?
It is elementary
K
K
to
through, I think their elementaries go K through 4.
Well, that's
Oh,
interesting.
5, because I saw a 5th grade class.
It's worth noting that they are doing this in lieu of computer classes.
They are.
And that's because they have their one-to-one program, but also, now that since reading this, I'm thinking, I wonder, in some ways, what the need is at this point for some of these computer classes, with students now just being so familiar with these devices. I mean, really out of the womb, it seems.
That was part of their
So-
thinking. The kids come to us, you know, as digital learners, and then we're kind of taking that away from them.
Yeah,
Um,
just something to think
They
about.
recently did the same thing at Immaculate too, by the way. If you want to
Did
visit
they?
up there. Yeah, there's no
Right.
computer class, except he takes the card around and does the younger grades.
And I don't think you need one-to-one computers to do this program. As
No.
long as you have a classroom set of, say, iPads.
Well, that is a great transition, perfect segue to the next item on the agenda. Yes, thank you. Tech in the classroom. And my description on our action item list is a discussion about technology in the classroom, where we stand and where we're going. So I'm interested in knowing what we're doing now in terms of technology in the classroom and where we see ourselves as a district moving over the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, however far out we can see. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Hurley. If anybody can offer anything.
Well, I think first, we should have our director of technology here for a
We should,
conversation like this.
yeah.
But to give you a general idea, obviously, we want to be integrating our technology into the classroom, which echoes a little bit what they were talking about. We want kids to be using, not just learning Excel, PowerPoint access, which is database software, but they want to be able to apply it to real life situations and real learning. So we want to use technology as a learning tool, not necessarily just learning the software itself, but learning to use it to enhance their learning and the presentations and things of that nature. So the integration of technology is certainly a priority. There's lots, as you know, and I'd like Scott to come to a meeting like this, but the types of software that is out there right now is becoming more and more advanced. The potential to differentiate instruction to even higher degrees is there in the software that is out there. It's not for all courses and all situations. It doesn't replace traditional learning, but it supplements traditional learning.
I mean, I would think by now, the capability of, of a student, if they do their homework, a lot of them are breaking down for a small quiz. The teacher knows what that kid did get. And the whole class, the teacher should know exactly where each kid, what the kid got that lesson, what they didn't get, what they really need to go back and reteach or teach a different way, something that the child didn't understand. I think that's there now.
This also offers some different, they are opportunities, but I'd call them more of challenges in the way of you have a stratification, I guess. The students who get that extra support at home and they're taking these computer programs that determine where they stand, perhaps they may be learning at a faster pace and may be separating themselves from others, and you also may have that vice versa. So would you like to say something on that note?
Yes, and one of the questions I did ask them was, well, when do your kids learn how to make a PowerPoint or how to generate a keyboard or some other computer application? And the response really made sense. She said they learn it when they need it, individually. And kids learn it like this if they don't already know how to do it.
The teachers are teaching more now because they've also come on board at Immaculate. They learned PowerPoint in 4th grade when they put together a president's PowerPoint presentation. So at one point the teachers weren't able to teach us stuff, but the teachers are all tech savvy too now. So they're actually teaching the kids right along with the assignment. At least that's my understanding.
They had kindergartners doing pre-coding activities
Wow.
and making these robots in the room move around. It just amazed me. Green screening, movie making, you name it. Kids as young as kindergarten were doing it.
And then the more advanced stuff will still be handled through the labs.
Yeah. I'd really like to keep this conversation going, but we should have Scott here for that, so I'll be sure to invite
That we
him.
have a visual presentation of where the direction you want to go with that, like maybe PowerPoint, how everything's coming together with the science and technology.
I mean, I know I've asked Scott on several occasions about where we're at. I know he said that you guys have been brainstorming and at what point will we actually see a presentation as to where you guys think we should be going?
Well, and right now, what we're doing is we're exploring what's out there. It's incredible, but if you start going to things like one-to-one, that's a huge investment in terms of dollars that you're going to be laying out. So it's things we've gone out, just to give you an idea of where we're at in the process. We've had Apple come in 2 to 3 times already with us. We've sent groups of staff members out to various schools where they've actually implemented those particular things and integrated a one-to-one system where they're using textbooks online and they're using them in a one-to-one type of
Specifically, that's something I'd like folks on this committee, if there's a way you could set us up with one of these schools just on our own time, maybe to go and see. Like, I'm interested in seeing what other schools are doing to bring this technology in. But a presentation, I think, would be nice. I'll get in touch with Scott about that, and his role is really going to take on a new flavor, if you will. It's not just supporting the tech in this school district, but now it's going to be intertwined, I think, a whole lot more with instruction. So this will be a conversation we'll continue next month. And is there anything anybody else has? Or again, this is a very natural segue to the next topic, which is again related to computers and digital art courses. And this is something that I just wanted to have a brief conversation about. I know we have a really strong art program in the district, especially at the high school level. And seeing some of the work our students put out at the BCIU Art Show, for example, it really is impressive. But just thinking about, again, technology and computers, I think it would be very beneficial for the district if we could find a way to harness that creative energy, but also instruct Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe Flash. A lot of companies, a lot of firms. I mean, even when I was out in California last summer, the San Diego Airport Authority had a dedicated employee, had a team actually, doing digital artwork in-house. And that itself there's a lot to learn with these program suites. And I think thinking about some of the art students who really enjoy our programs in Daniel Boone, maybe if we could add a course in digital art, that might be beneficial in terms of careers and beyond even. So that's just a thought I had.
Any interest in that, you think?
And it may even require a bit of, I don't know.
The questions are they're definitely interesting. Anytime we add something, though, right now, our staffing is maxed out.
Yeah.
So it's going to be something that has to come out. Put something in, something's got to come out, or we got to make another staffing model change.
Well, that's something
Just keep that in mind as you talk about.
Well, absolutely.
When they, I mean, STEM is very well known, and they tried to make STEAM, and that's kind of caught on, but not caught on. how does that art piece of STEAM play into?
We moved off the STEAM piece a little bit at the high school to the creative and performing arts pathway piece, which is more dedicated specifically, to the arts element. And then the STEM piece, Mr. Harris wanted to move more concretely on the STEM side. So we kind of disaggregated those two pieces. The thing I would say in terms of technology is when you look at the high school, it's where are we and then where are we going? So there's two elements to look at. So where we are is in a stagnant model, pull-out model. We teach Excel independently. We have, Mr. Simmons teaches, does a really nice job of programming, kind of a separate piece. Where we're going in conversations with Apple, or whether we choose Chrome or whatever it is how does it support the instruction and the learning for the students? How does it integrate? So if if it gets funded and we go in that direction, that piece is ready to move forward, not only in the assessment piece you talk about, which is mostly how the technology is used currently at the high school, but then how does it really support and take learning? So students are writing scripts and making movies and videos of their learning and recreating things. And so you have the whole project.
Well, the point here that I'm getting at hearing that is that I think we need to move past the point of we teach PowerPoint, we teach Excel, we teach Word separately. That needs to be intertwined in everything now.
That's where we are, and that's where we're going. So, we talk.
Well, more what you said, we're at this pull-out model, and we need to go to this more
Correct.
inclusive.
Project-based.
What I'm saying is, here's where we are.
Yeah.
Okay, we've laid out a plan for where we're going. Okay, so where we're going is through an integrated piece. The question would be how we fund it and how we bring those things forward.
And I think our next greatest challenge, that's something we're dedicated to, is stepping up our infrastructure. Because right now, it's tough. A lot of times that bandwidth.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
But even issues of like the Microsoft Office suite, Excel isn't just limited to statistics. You can use it in English. I mean, when looking at number of words, how frequently they appear in an essay or something, you can use these programs everywhere, data visualizations, just very elementary things that we can incorporate all over. So again, in terms of curriculum, that's just something I'd ask to keep in mind. And it would be nice in the future if, again, I don't know the specific courses we have in the art department, but maybe instead of, I know ceramics is very valuable, but maybe this could be more.
It's part of the three-dimensional art, so there's
Sure,
many things,
okay.
not just ceramics. But what we do is have digital photography. So there's a digital element piece which would lead to digital graphic and digital art design. So that's in play. It's about probably speaking with the art department and asking them, really how do we bring forward the most contemporary elements of
Yeah.
digital art.
And not just manipulating photos, but really creating stuff from scratch digitally. That's just something a challenge.
So you're
Administration.
saying like become a component of one of the existing classes?
Yeah, I think I have to
Where
sit
we're
down
going.
with the art folks and hear, when we start to get into art and music, I start to get out of my depth. And
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
I need, they start to
Yeah.
inform you and tell you, here's where this can go, this is what it looks like, here's what's cutting edge, here's how, we often talk about Penn State, and they inform us about how to get it.
Yeah, but one of the benefits specifically, you mentioned how I'm thinking now of arts and music, and I think a challenge we have in those courses is after you graduate high school or college, sometimes those can become hobbies, and any way we can turn those into actual careers. And I think this could be one way to do that. So that creativity is something that really lasts a lifetime. Yeah.
And that's basically, you paraphrase what you just said, the whole goal of it.
And I'm not saying there isn't value in the hobbies or anything, and that it wouldn't necessarily become a career. And I don't believe that our goal is necessarily creating careers. I think our goal is learning for the sake of learning in Daniel Boone, and everything else is extra and good. But just again, that's something to consider. Anybody else? I'm talking a lot on that
That's good.
subject.
That's good.
All right. Coral Reef update.
Okay, briefly, where we're at with the Coral Reef project is as follows. Basically, 95% of the refurbishing work is done at this point in time. That deals with the lighting systems, the different switches, the fans, and the valves, the donated material needed repair work. So that's primarily where the emphasis has been done so far. Unfortunately, the professor we were working with, we ran into a little bit of a roadblock, had a medical emergency. I'll leave it at that
Okay.
in this meeting. We have met with him 3 times. Like I said, there was a medical emergency. The plan is next year, when this situation goes through and he's okay and everything's good, we'll continue with the work This summer, they're going to purchase the reef supplies themselves from the fish store, the fish themselves. And it takes some time, apparently, I guess they got to buy the live sand and things like that. Has to like settle in or whatever for a certain number of weeks.
You said
They actually-
next year. Is that this August, this school year, or is it
Yes.
like 1 year from today?
So, no, school year.
Okay.
It'll be starting.
All right, just making sure. All right.
You're moving forward with purchasing the fish and the supplies before the professor's on board?
Well, no, I got to choose my words more carefully. Like live sand, things like live sand,
Yeah.
you have to purchase before you purchase the fish itself.
Okay.
There's other supplies that go with
there are some
apparently a
things you can
saltwater
do.
aquarium and
Okay.
things like that.
So we don't have to worry about any kind of, over the summer maintenance right now?
Not
It's
right now,
not
no.
an issue?
All the work's been
That's
done
good
on
at
it.
least.
It deals with the aquarium, the lightings and things like that. The live stuff hasn't hit yet, so.
Good. Thanks, Mr. Booth.
Yeah, sure.
And are we with Rosemont on this, or which
We're
university?
still with Rosemont on this.
Okay. How much are they putting forward to assist? Do you remember off the top of your head?
First, in terms of personal time, he's donating a lot of his time to
Yeah.
be involved with the research. and
In
stuff.
terms of
they gave us
money
several.
time.
My understanding was, and Preston might be able to echo into this a little bit. I think it was a couple where a lot of the equipment was like used equipment from them. They used
Yeah.
it for refurbishing that equipment. So a significant portion of the donation had to do with the equipment from them.
All right.
So it's just Dr. Ulrich?
Yes,
Take
it
a
is.
reference.
And we hope he is doing well.
I have the proposal here if you want to see it.
Okay, I'll check it out then. I don't know if anybody else. I just was wondering where that stood. We talked about it a while back.
Fair question.
All right, next up is one of the big items on the agenda, middle school staffing. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hurley to speak on this, and I'm sure Mrs. Rexford will chime in, and we all have some thoughts on this. So, Mr. Hurley.
Well, I mean, you asked me to speak basically, and I'll allow Mrs. Rexford to chime in anytime she wants, but basically, right now, if we continue, and I'll continue with this discussion we had the other day, if we continue with our current staffing levels, our average class size for the middle school teams will be about 22 students.
For sixth grade,
For
right?
sixth grade,
Okay.
we're talking about. If the school board goes forward and decides to eliminate a position, the average class size will be about 25 per class. That is average. There is a range that you will find. Typically, and at the middle school level, you'll see a range of about 3 students on either side. We won't know until the actual data comes in for the students, because when you schedule for student needs. You don't just schedule it when you run it. So that's why you see the range of class size.
Now, in the budget, we have, if you could just remind me here, 3 positions being eliminated. I guess, are most of those through attrition? Are you comfortable saying now? Perhaps that's a question for
Yeah, and
later.
I
I
think
don't know.
Mr. Small would be the best person to answer that
Yeah.
particular question there. I can certainly paint a little bit of color, to
Yeah.
that, but I think that's one of the things we're looking at, is trying to do things through attrition. If
Yeah.
possible, it may not be possible in certain situations.
Okay. Now, in the budget, 2 of those staff positions, we had this discussion at the board meeting. 2 were at the elementary level, but 1 in the current budget is at the middle school level. Is that correct?
That's my understanding for
Okay.
talking to Mr. Small. Yes.
All right. So in the budget now includes the reduction of 1.
That's my understanding for talking.
That's just
Yes.
the color of the conversation. But
So they're bringing the impact of that to this
Yeah, the
committee
impact
so that we could pass
is to
that
discuss
knowledge
it.
through.
Yeah.
Discuss that,
Yeah.
We'll make a difference.
The gym, and I'll let Jenny speak to
I
this.
can speak.
Go ahead, please do.
Yes. Well, I have a concern with eliminating a staff member from our 6th grade. As you know, that's a transition year for our kids. So our kids are going from elementary school to middle school. Many of you may remember your time in middle school is not being your favorite time. Being an adolescent is not fun. They need a lot of support. So obviously a smaller class size really is great for them, because with the teams, they have fewer students to focus on. For example, with a 25, an average of 25 in a class, a teacher might have 75 students, whereas if we would go with keeping that extra teacher, they would have about 65 students that they're responsible for. And we really are trying to support our students as much as possible. There's a lot of stuff socially, emotionally that goes on with kids that students are really not prepared for, and adolescence is not a fun time. So just that alone, I can't recommend making that change. We do have needs in the building, so if that were something that you would be willing to consider holding on to for a year in the middle school, if you're set on the sixth grade position being eliminated because of the class size coming in, the class size that follows the current fourth grade does have 271, which would mean that the average class size then when they're in sixth grade, assuming that it stays about the same, would be 27, which is a little on the large side. So we do, I mean, in the past several years, we have lost extra reading support. We used to have a sixth grade, a seventh grade, and an eighth grade reading teacher that worked with kids who struggle with reading. We now have 2 instead of 3. We also we only have 1 teacher that works with kids who struggle with math instead of having 2. So I would love to have the opportunity to just repurpose that person for a year, if that were something that the board would be willing to consider.
So even if we were to add this person back, the class sizes would still be an average of 25? If you're going to repurpose this
Well, I'm
position?
just saying, if that would be something that you'd be willing to consider, then the class size there would be only 10 teachers in sixth grade, like what you're proposing, but I would still be able to keep that person. So that's one ideally, that would be wonderful if I would have the opportunity to do that. But again, I understand where the board is coming from with financial reasons.
And we appreciate you advocating for the students from
Now-
your perspective.
And the
So what do you mean by repurpose though? I missed that.
Well, in the past several years with the cuts that have
Oh, so you would
taken
take
place.
a reading specialist out of it or a math specialist
I
out of
actually would
that?
ask that person
support
could do
the
support
larger-
reading and math,
Sorry?
kind of split them in half so that half the day
That's
they
not a
could
bad
be an
idea.
extra support in math and half would be an extra support in reading.
That's not a bad idea.
Just because our kids need it and with losing those over the past several years, our class sizes in those interventions have gone up. So there's not as much there's not as much time with them, and as you know with the Common Core, especially in math particularly, the kids need extra support. We'll leave it at that. The PE thing that you talked about, one of the things that I tried to do in looking at that sixth grade position was to say, okay, how overall might I be able to help to maybe meet a need that you have? And one of the retirements happens to be in PE. So I was actually willing to say, I'll give up one of my people so that I can keep my sixth grade teacher, but that would reduce programming. So it would mean that kids would have PE only once a 6-day cycle instead of twice, which is currently basically what they have in elementary and what they have in 11th and 12th grade. But it is reducing programming. So again, it's not ideal. Kids do need to move and have physical
Well,
activity.
that time they would have been in gym. Will they be in the classroom now?
Well, yes, I actually was trying to figure out how to get them some extra math time in place of that extra class.
Now,
So-
I'd be interested in knowing, is this PE teacher, is that in the budget as a vacancy? We're going to
First, can we
leave?
step back?
Sure.
Like, just because Mrs. Kiesel brought this to my attention, I just want to make sure, for the sake of clarity here, there was, according to the last meeting, there was at the elementary level, we were not eliminating any positions at the elementary level. Was our last meeting? Is that correct? The last.
Well, I remember there were 3 recommendations that were shown on the piece, or 2 recommendations on a piece of paper, and there were 3 that we argued over. And 2, we decided to go with the administrative recommendation, I believe, on 2 of them. And on 1 of them, we went with the finance recommendation. I don't know how that's reflected in the budget, but that was a
It was the
discussion.
one where there's 4 sections.
It was the
Yes.
fourth grade at AEC that we decided to go with
The larger.
lower number, 4
Oh.
sections instead of 5. That's the only one, which if you did the calculations, there were no staff cuts in the elementary.
Then 59 is my understanding.
Right.
That doesn't include the one that he needs for the special education, the life skills that Mr. Harris was.
I thought it was reading specialist.
I thought we were talking net changes in staffing. I remember that being discussed, and I thought we were at net negative loss of 2.
That was,
Or
if
negative
you looked at the middle school as being down 2, teacher and a PE.
Ah.
But it originally came up.
And no, that was not.
Yeah, so then
That, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we're talking about, in terms, I'll give you my
We're just looking
view.
at the middle school, right?
On the class size, the way I see it, at the middle school level, our elementary class sizes range, I don't know the numbers, if it's between 20 and 24 for K to 3 or K to 2, and then 3 to 5, it's 22 to 26. Is that about right? If anybody, I think
I have it right here.
22 to 26, okay. I mean, that's our suggested class size for elementary, so I wouldn't see a problem being at 25 at middle, which is presumably the kids have a little bit more maturity at that time than in elementary. And well, it's a process. I just can't see spending. Well, let me just finish here. I can't foresee spending, looking at the cost benefit, for a net average of going from 25 to 23 or 25 to 22 at the cost of a full-time teacher. I don't see that. That's just me. So, sorry, Mr. McGinley, go ahead.
So I appreciate, I think that it would be wise for us to take a global look at our K-12 staffing model. Because during this time, and I've heard, numbers are going down at the elementary level and so forth, but we're up 70 students at the high school, and we haven't added any staff. So I think repurposing everybody and looking at what's the right size for right folks based on certification is what would be appropriate to look at. Should there be more at middle school, elementary, and high school? I don't know the answer, but I think we need to really go into that piece of it, because we lost a phys ed teacher last year. We have 3 phys ed teachers. We added 70 or 80 students to the high school, and nobody's talking about adding any staff to the high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the conversation when you're talking about reducing. I agree with it, I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but not once has anybody brought up adding anybody back to the high school as the numbers have gone up.
Yeah.
Our kid, we have sizes of 300 in those classes. So I just want to get that in the conversation, and maybe the global perspective would be appropriate.
Well, that's a challenge to the administration, then, to come back with I don't know, what would your process be for looking at it that way? Looking at...
We'd have to sit down as a team and come back to K-12 understanding.
Yeah.
Because certifications impact that. Certainly some elementary people can't, but
No.
some elementary people can move with the population.
Yeah.
And move forward, through the system.
Well, and that's part of it. At some point, this bubble is going to reach the high school, and it's going to be dramatic when it does. We're not at that point yet, but any way that our staffing can be a little bit more elastic, I think, instead of talking maybe class sizes, if we could switch to a system like that, I think that would be at least worth entertaining and investigating. But still, we're stuck at this question of what to do this year with the resources that we have.
Well, and one of the difficulties at the middle school level is the team thing. So when we do eliminate or change something, that obviously affects the teaming.
Yeah.
And so those teams have worked together and have built units together and teach science with their math class and English with their social studies class and do all of those things. And so they've done a lot of really great things this year. And then if someone is eliminated, that does change the makeup of the teaming in 6th grade, which then kind of starts them all back at square one, which isn't ideal. And then the problem in 7th and 8th grade is that, yes, we do, they work in teams, but it's not as easy as just plucking somebody out and moving them somewhere, because then a team is minus a subject area. So 7th and 8th grade, those teachers are subject specific.
Well, what are the teams looking like now for 6th grade?
In 6th grade,
Yeah.
we have 3 teams of 3 teachers, and then 1 team that's 2 teachers, because we have 11 total. So in that team of 2, the 2 teachers split up what they teach. One teaches math and science in one social studies class, the other one teaches language arts and social studies. And then on the other teams, they teach language arts, and then they either teach science or social studies or math.
That team of 2, is there a way, if we were to move forward with reducing this position, that you could take that team, which would then be a team of 1, and make the teams larger and take that one other staff person and maybe have them float or be a reading
Well,
specialist?
then it
or
wouldn't be I don't
No?
understand what you're...
Well, I'm saying we have 3 teams now of 3 and then 1 team of 2, and that's what you're recommending we keep, correct?
Well, ideally, yes, I would
Sure.
like to keep that.
Yeah.
If we were to lose the person, one of those teams of 3 would become a team of 2. It's better in a
Oh,
middle
okay.
school to have the teams that are smaller so that they know the kids better than
Okay.
have these large teams where they don't all have the kids and they
All
don't
right.
know them.
So that's the flip side of what I was asking, if maybe it would be better to go to a larger team.
Yeah.
So you're saying
I
smaller
don't
is better.
personally feel that way. I mean, like I said in the beginning, middle school kids are a very different breed of student. They have a lot of different needs, and the more the teachers can get to know them and know their strengths and their needs.
Well,
and
that goes
those
across
kinds
the
of
board
things,
at all
right?
levels of education.
So it's better to have a smaller team where everybody knows the kids, whereas when you have a bigger team, when they get together and have a team meeting, they might talk about one student, two of the people don't even have them.
But
So-
I guess my charge to the committee then is, does that difference in average class size for sixth grade, 25 versus 22, is that worth the cost of a full-time staff person? That's
So,
what we could discuss.
if I was following Rex Rhodes' suggestion was to temporarily move that person to a reading math support and let the class be at 25 average, correct? And then, because next year, the fifth grade class that moves in will bump middle school back up again by 20 some odd students.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm going to need somebody the following year is what I'm
Well, then is the next year going to be a question of adding another person and keeping the reading
well,
specialist?
no, see, that's not what I was going to say. The
Yeah.
caveat to this is, next year, that we have to understanding that this reading
Will go back.
was a temporary, this is just your, we're not cutting,
Yeah.
we're not cutting a spot next year. They're going back to, and then, you know, in theory, that person could, or a person could then follow into the high schools. But then after year two, the elementary population goes back down again for the future. So that person, a person could then come to the high school, follow that.
Other thoughts? So is that what we're going to discuss now? Mr. Rathgeb had his suggestion, or channeling Mrs. Rexford's suggestion. Sure. I mean,
But it needs to be clear, because I know that next year,
Yeah.
well, we're cutting a spot of
Yeah.
a specialist, and that spot was cut years ago.
And that's assuming that that fifth grade cohort remains the same size.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I've said my position. Mr. Rathgeb, is that what you're advocating, or is that just
I'm
throwing it out there?
Throwing it.
Okay.
I guess my other concern too is if we wouldn't keep that person around to do something that we need, and that person does leave the middle school, whether it is to go to elementary or whether it is that that person loses their job, I can't speak to what happened to them. But, so then the following year, we're going to be adding somebody who would be new to the middle school and new to the people that they're working with and new to the teaming and all of those things, as opposed to somebody who we kept, who knows what's going on in the middle school and has worked with those people and is familiar with.
Well, even on
kids
that end,
and
I mean,
all of
sometimes
those
new ideas are, new people coming in and new practices and new ideas.
Well,
There's a plus side to that,
I will
too.
say we have one of the top middle schools in the state.
Do we? That's.
How are our reading and math scores?
Well, I hope our people think we do too. I don't know if the numbers.
That's absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And I'd
correct.
like to keep it that way.
That is a factual statement.
How are our reading and math scores at the sixth grade level where you want this specialist?
They are very good. They have gone, and actually as you move up through 7th and 8th grade to with the implementation of the Common Core, they have gone down from where they had been. But that
That's the
is
transition.
Yeah, I mean,
in the
and it
test
is,
score.
we're not the only school that happened to, obviously, but right now our sixth grade does not have any extra support in math at all. We only have one person, so they offer it currently to 7th and 8th grade. So the sixth graders and our special education students, who also are not served by that person, don't have that extra support in math that, they really could use, because some of the kids are really struggling in that area, and if they had some extra time, I think that they would do better. They have the extra time in language arts. They have a block of language arts. They see their language arts teacher for 86 minutes a day, and then some of them have reading as a support, whereas with math, they have a 43-minute period, and that's it. So that's why I was just suggesting that if you're really set on eliminating that sixth grade position because the class size is going down, really, really, really could use it to do some extra supports in the building, because we do see that our kids are struggling in math. There are some kids who just really are having a hard time getting those concepts, and if they had some extra time with it, I think that they could get them, so that by the time Mr. McKnight does get them, they're a lot stronger than they are right now, because they're not getting them.
So this position you want to repurpose is for the building support for reading the math, or
Yes.
just sixth grade?
It would be mainly for sixth grade, but that person would have some time to also support some kids in seventh and eighth grade that may not be getting that extra support.
It'll be all math instructor. I mean, that be your intention would be to have to be
Yes.
a math
Math.
support person, no reading support.
Yes. If that person happened to have time, because it would be an elementary person, they could do some reading support if
Okay.
that was possible. But right now, our need, I feel,
Yeah.
our need is more in the math area.
So in reality, you know, that spot was cash. Your card and tables, your retiring teacher.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my like last ditch effort to be able to keep my sixth grade position. Yes. But again, obviously, when you look at that, that's not ideal. I was just looking at a way to figure out how I could maybe offer you something in order to get what I want.
Mr. Knight said, although you didn't get this,
Comment?
Yeah.
You stated your opinion about next year's sixth grade class.
Yeah.
Let's look ahead a year for a second. Would you agree that 2 years from now, whether it be this person or another person, that when the class size, if the class size increases to 27, would you be in favor of adding one back, assuming that we,
Well, it's difficult for me to say that just with the without knowing any of the other variables. Like, I'm just weighing this versus everything else going on in the budget, between the facilities repairs, between the anticipated tax increase, and some of the comments we heard from other folks there. Like, there are just so many pieces I'm weighing internally, and I don't know what those pieces will be next year. So I'm not sure, but I do think we need to have the flexibility in future years where we have to be a more nimble operation. And if we can make it with one fewer position this year that requires adding one next year, then I think that's something we should do.
My only
But-
point was that if we all agreed that a year from now we were going to need to bring them back, one back anyway, then it would certainly seem silly to actually eliminate someone.
That's where I
and
disagree. I'm
risk.
saying our system, we need to be resilient enough where we can do something like that. And I don't know if it's bad bringing in somebody younger, somebody who, fresh out of college, may have some new ideas and perspectives on these things and the latest. Not saying that our current staff don't, but I don't think it's this idea that we're going to keep a position that just for the sake of we're going to need it next year. Well, then let's add it next year. That's my perspective on it, at least. Mrs. Pipes, were you going to say something there?
Yeah, but I mean, about me too. I'm not seeing a connection between the two years. I mean, it's only next year, you'll get a placeholder. Although I like
And
to
so-
consider the math support being too.
It's just a placeholder. It's just such an expense that if we don't need it, then I don't see us doing
Exactly,
it.
in this budget amendment.
I just am overall just very worried, and I know Mr. Radcliffe has said this before in the past too. We don't know the effects for, the middle school has lost a lot. We went from having teams, now we have a split team, which functions, but they don't have common time to plan or work together. So that's difficult, and the kids are kind of stuck in the classes that they're in because they don't have so many to move back and forth with, because there's only 2 seventh grade classes, so they're kind of with the same kids every day. But we make it work.
Yeah.
We lost the
But even there, I mean,
Rivet
but that being said, it's still sixth grade, where in fifth grade they didn't move at all, and in high school they move all the time. Like, I'm just weighing again the cost versus the benefit.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean,
We appreciate
I
your
am the
comment.
principal of the building.
Yes.
Understood,
I'm just
yeah.
saying, I don't recommend it. Here's what I'd love to do with it. I would love that you would consider my recommendation for what to do with that position if you want to remove it. But ultimately, it is your decision to make, so.
I truly appreciate that. Truly appreciate hearing the impact of our decisions.
Yeah.
And that's how fun it is.
And I do think we certainly need to move forward, looking at Mr. McKnight's suggestion for how we can have, like I said, like an elastic, a more efficient or
So if we cut it
model
left
for
25
staffing.
average, some classes will be larger than others. Some will be more than that, some will be less, and you'll have big class sizes that won't be properly supported in there.
But even 25, I don't, after
I
our
just wanna
conversation
focus on the number
before,
right now.
yeah, I don't think
It's not
that's
27, 'cause 27 is
astronomical,
definitely
yeah.
an amount for that. 25, I feel the whole rivet theory coming back. At some point, the barrel's gonna bust. Remember Andrew Bezos' rivet theory?
Oh, yeah. But I don't, I mean, so I'm still sticking with, I think we do the 25 this year. That's my view on
I
it.
think I'm on the same way, as much as I hate to do it.
Okay, but you're
What do you
leaning
guys think?
with the 25 and the math support person or not? Or are we separating the two issues?
I was leaning what we had was reflected in the budget. The 25, eliminate the position.
Okay. I'm leaning the other way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not leaning at all.
You're
My
committed.
preference would be to maintain the current staffing. that there
not
would be.
rehire a gym teacher and keep the extra person and put him into the math.
So
The gym teacher's out
the gym
anyway.
person, the gym position's
It's
out.
just a question of the second position.
Then if you're taking the gym person out and the teacher out, then where do you put?
I think that's what we're talking about, right? The gym teacher is out.
The
That's
gym
one
person's
piece. We're just
never
talking
really
about the
been
second.
in the discussion, and so it's been out of the budget, from my understanding.
Well, no, it was added back in, actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that was, it was added back in last week.
okay. Must have missed that discussion then.
It wasn't a discussion, it was, after the meeting, they realized the gym teacher never should have been on as part of that.
If you get rid of that gym teacher, the end result of that will be a cutting curriculum. You'll end up with 1 day of phys ed as opposed to 2 days of phys ed in 6th grade. So if you were to do that, there is a impact in curriculum. Is that correct?
In all 3 grades, not just the one.
So the discussion we're having now, the gym position is going to happen next year unless we.
No,
We
I
switch.
was just grasping at straws to try to figure
No,
out something
I understand, but
to
now
get you guys to-
I'm confused
for
here
one
as
keep
to
my 6th grade
what the
position.
status
That's all.
of
I
the
would
gym
rather that you
position
just
is with the
ignore it.
budget.
Too late.
Mr. Hurley, could you tell us what positions are impacted in the budget next year as it currently stands? That was some of
According to Mr. Small, business manager should speak to this. According to Mr. Small, the business, there is a middle school position on the teams, and the second position that is in there is anticipated retirement, and that's anticipated. That doesn't mean guaranteed.
Where's the retirement from?
Potentially,
So you're looking at a net loss in the current budget of 2.
yes, you need to speak to Mr. Small, but right now it's to according to Mr. Small.
And additionally, you're saying that if the gym teacher retirement occurs, it results in a programming change. Is that correct?
Well, the gym
In a
retirement-
programming reduction or not?
That's the potential. I
Okay.
believe. And I simply was looking at a way to offer you some things that you might ignore, like you might forget about the fact that you want to cut my 6th grade position, that's all. But it does cut programming, it would cut the program in half for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so it's not ideal. But
It's a little bit just, I'm going to be completely honest here, concerning to me as a board member that our administration doesn't seem 100% certain on what is in the budget versus what is not in the
We're very
budget.
certain-
We know
We're
what's-
very certain what's in the budget.
So one
Our
middle school
business manager
position-
should be here. Our business manager.
Yeah,
should
sure,
be
but
here.
This really is a conversation, don't you think, that involves the business level?
well, it also involves curriculum, and I think we all need to be working together as administration, and we all need to be on the same page as to, like, I'm asking the
According to Mr. Small,
Yes.
Mr. Small, this afternoon,
Yes.
there are 2 positions in the budget, 2 current cuts in the budget.
Okay.
One of those cuts, okay, one of those cuts is the 6th grade.
Which is what we're talking about right now.
And the other one is potential retirements.
Okay, so the gym teacher-
Potential. Those are
the
two
gym
that are in
teacher
there.
is in the budget.
That you keep using the word gym teacher, a potential retirement is in the budget, okay? So that's.
I'm asking about the position. I'm not asking about people. Are we going to have that gym teacher next year, or are we not? And as things stand right now, status
Yes,
quo.
the gym teacher is here as
Okay,
right now.
that was my question. All right.
We're not gonna be able to make a recommendation.
Yeah, there's.
We can't make a recommendation.
You know, this is something I don't think we can make a recommendation on this. This is not. We're going to have a conversation with Mr. Small as this committee. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. But we'll thank you for. We're going to keep considering this. I'm frustrated with the information that has just been presented. But we're going to move on and we're going to keep going. Middle school Chinese.
Yeah, we'd like to bring middle school China, we'd like to bring foreign language back to the middle school. One way in which we can do it in a very cost-effective way is to bring Chinese back to the middle school. We have the potential of partnering with BCIU for a distance learning class. The teachers will be certified teachers. It comes at a cost to the district of $5,000. It will be done through visual, okay, through distance learning and through a camera system.
I'd be interested in knowing the effectiveness. Have you done any research into how effective the distance model learning is for foreign language?
No, we have not. In terms of effectiveness, it's a typical distance learning system.
Well, I don't know how effective a typical
Yeah,
distance.
until we get actual results, the program itself, it'll be difficult to measure the effectiveness. So
I think it would be at that low cost, $5,000 to bring Mandarin into our school. A question would be at the high school, how do we support that? That would be, I guess, in the future. If you're going to be looking to start with 6th grade, you have time to plan. But I am very interested because I was on the BCIU board when this was implemented at the BCIU, when they began the program. And I always had doubts about how effective sitting in front of a screen, talking with a teacher so far away. Maybe it works great, and if it does, I think we should definitely do it. Maybe there's a benefit. Some Chinese is better than no Chinese, I guess. But I'd like to get more information as to how effective the model is. That's my view on
We'll find out
it.
once we implement it.
But I'm inclined to do it. Well, I think we can look at how other districts have done it to get that information.
Well, it wouldn't be legitimate if it wasn't effective. It wouldn't be awesome. There is effectiveness. How effective?
Yeah, I'm interested in knowing how effective it is. Like, what is the goal for our students who take this program? Are they looking to become fluent? Are they looking for a taste? Like, what objective are we trying to reach with this program?
we're trying to teach kids. We want to give them exposure to a foreign language. We want to give them exposure to world cultures, other cultures. And ultimately, obviously, no one's going to become fluent in their first year.
No.
But ultimately, if the program builds and we have interest, currently we do have interest based upon our surveys. Obviously, we'd like them to be able to speak and read Chinese. Ultimately, would be the end goal. The other school districts who do this, what they do, Connor, is they provide different levels as they go up grade levels. Okay, and the BCIU currently has the ability to do that for us.
Do you have off the top of your head other Berks County school districts that are part of this group that we might be able to, I could
Twin
reach out
Valley is
to?
one right off the top of my head.
Okay.
How are the logistics work out? Is it like you'll be in a study hall? How do they physically take this class?
They
without
would
reserve?
they would take the class tentatively. Mrs. Becker talked about encores, replacing a special area subject with that. We would have a teacher in the classroom itself as they're there to take attendance. If there's a discipline issue, things of that nature, there's a Chinese teacher who will be teaching the class via distance learning.
I mean, is there going to be a need for more teachers?
No.
to-
Nope. We can use it with our existing staff.
Okay.
We're good on
As
our
a
network.
What's that? Yeah, we will.
Phone network?
We will.
Well, then looking to the committee, is there,
Well, I'd like to move ahead with that.
you want to move ahead now? You want to advance it to the full board?
I don't think there's any question about the effectiveness of my mind.
Okay.
You offered,
Like
I
to
look
bring it
forward to
forward.
it.
Yeah, I
That's
would-
a cheap
I would-
way
Wanna do it?
to bring us
Given
back
the
to
cost too,
languages.
I don't.
Okay.
I say jump in that.
All right, well, we'll advance that to the committee of the whole. I am still interested in information on its effectiveness, so if you can just send that
I
out,
can send you some brochures.
that would be helpful, yeah. All right, so that'll be on the committee of the whole then. Finally, I just wanted to include, for the sake of resolution, we did advance the alumni recognition proposal last meeting, and that's on the voting meeting agenda tonight for approval. So there's that. Now, this is the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. We adjourn at 7:30. If there's any public comment as to anything we've
One more
discussed.
quick thing. The
Oh,
Shining Apple Award, is that out there? Are we up or is that next year?
that is next year.
Next year, okay.
Yeah. CNI, if you have, just state your name and address, and please sign in.
Angela Snyder, 604 East 3rd Street, Birdsgrove, Pennsylvania. As far as this meeting that we're currently doing right now, had a section on the substitute
Yeah.
situation. I've been a substitute with Dana Boone for 14 years. Very happy to be here. Loves the substituting for Dana Boone. I'm wondering how this is going to affect. I'm a yes teacher
Okay.
certification. Okay, so I'm wondering how this is going to affect me. Is it going to be something where I'm going to need to potentially do what we did a couple of years ago when we moved to BCIU? I had to go to BCIU. I had to go back through all the original role and training and
Yeah.
everything.
Are you asking specifically about this potential new service,
Yes,
subservice?
potential new service,
It's
how that
premature for this
works.
discussion though, isn't it?
Well, it's still. Well, do you have an answer to that from what how you've been researching? Do you know what this service actually does? Is it just a?
They'll use our current system to help do that. They'll work with the current subs, the employment system, so that will not be.
So ASOP will be.
ASOP, from your standpoint, it'll be relatively seamless.
Okay.
They actively recruit. They have people that go out and try to get people in to bring us to enlarge the sub pool itself.
Okay.
They do, one of the things they do, and we sit down and we talk to them, was like, for example, if we have a day like, say, for example, Fridays, where we know we have a lot of subs and a lot of people,
Right.
they'll put incentives out there for people to come and work on Fridays, things that we can't currently do or don't currently do. Like might enter a lottery when it doesn't cost us anything, but that way they get a higher fill rate than what we might get typically.
Right.
For
But
that.
those of us that are already in here,
Yeah,
in
you're
the
fine.
district, we're all good.
Yeah, you'll
This
be
is
in the
just to
system.
add more people.
It's to add more people, that's the purpose of
Awesome.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Christine Endy. I'm not a resident of the district. I'm a teacher. I was hoping, since it wasn't quite as formal process, you would give me 3 minutes of your time.
Could
to
we see if
address-
there are any residents
Yeah.
first though?
This is CNI. We have to finish by 7:30. Now, if there are any other residents who have a comment on the curriculum and instruction committee, you can speak now. But does it relate to what we discussed last
Very
meeting?
much does. It very much does.
What specific topic?
Regarding the 6th grade position and the math support position and the importance of that from the student's perspective.
Is this something, I mean, again, non-resident? You think it's fine, Mr. Rathgeb? Are you fine? Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm writing on behalf of the students in our district. I've been a teacher in the Indiana School District for 9 years. I spent 5 years at the elementary school and the past 4 years teaching math at the middle school. Prior to becoming a teacher, I worked in the engineering industry as an engineer for 2 major corporations doing environmental and civil engineering work. I understand firsthand what is expected of our students when they enter the workforce. I'm proud to be a teacher in the Indiana School District, and as you're here in a few minutes, I was very lucky to have 4 outstanding young ladies where I was able to take to the STEM competition, which you all talked about earlier, how important STEM is. And we have some outstanding students and parents supporting them. However, beyond our students who might find that math comes naturally, we have many students who struggle with math on a daily basis. This is especially evident in 6th grade when they transition to middle school because they have shorter periods of time. They're going from an hour and a quarter of math time to 40 minutes of math. That is a shock to them with the Common Core curriculum that they're faced with. It's not enough time. And we have no way to support them at this point because we're so slim on staff. The 7th and 8th grade students do have a math support person that they can get some support either 2 times a cycle or every day. We have nothing in math. We try to do as much as we can. We supply before and after school tutoring on our time, but we're not paid. And unfortunately, some of the students that struggle the most also don't have transportation to be able to get them to school before or to stay after to be picked up if they want tutoring. Our parents, we see this frustration on a weekly basis. Even if parents say to us, we don't know how to help them with Common Core curriculum of math. So, I'd like to point out that all the surrounding districts actually have a double period for math. Boyertown, Twin Valley, all double periods for math instruction. When Boyertown goes to a 6, 7, 8 model in 2 years' time, instead of K to 6, they will be double periods for 6, 7, and 8 math. I think that's really important. Although our math PSSA scores have been very good, we are doing an injustice to our students by only giving them 40 minutes of math. We see the frustration in those tears on a weekly basis. We're really trying to take a round peg in a square hole with what we're trying to teach in 40 minutes of time of math. So if you're set on eliminated position in 6th grade, I'm here on behalf of our students to please ask you to give our 6th grade some math support, because they are the only students right now who don't have a math support position. Thank you for taking the time up.
Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind just signing in, thank you. And I
You need
think,
the public comments though. Don't
oh yeah, if you have written comments, we
I will,
tend to,
yes.
thank you.
I didn't read the book, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, any, meeting adjourned? Meeting adjourned at 7:27.